In 1942, the Nazis secretly built something in one of the most remote and frozen places on Earth. It's far beyond the Arctic Circle, where no one was supposed to survive. For decades, people thought it was just a rumor, a myth, until in 2016, explorers stepped onto a forgotten island and uncovered what the Nazis had really left behind. What they found was chilling, and it raises a terrifying question. What were the Nazis doing here, so far from the war in the middle of the ice? Alright, so let's start with the place itself, because you need to understand just how impossible this location is. We're talking about Alexandra Land, part of the Franz Josef Land archipelago in the Russian Arctic. And when I say remote, I mean this place is basically the edge of the world. Picture this. Okay, it's 600 miles north of mainland Russia. The temperature here drops to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. For 9 months of the year, it's complete darkness. No trees, no animals, except for polar bears and seals. The ice here is so thick that even modern icebreakers struggle to get through. So here's the thing that gets me. Why would Nazi Germany, in the middle of fighting a world war, send precious resources and manpower to literally one of the most hostile places on planet Earth? I mean, we're talking about a regime that was stretched thin on multiple fronts, running out of fuel, running out of men. Yet they decided this frozen wasteland was worth the risk. That question haunted historians for decades, you know. Most people just assumed it was propaganda, maybe some exaggerated story from the Cold War era. Now here's where it gets interesting. The Nazis didn't just build any old military outpost up there. They gave it a very specific name, Schatzgräber. In German, that translates to treasure hunter. Think about that for a second. Why would you name a weather station after treasure hunting? Weather stations get boring names like Arctic Station 7 or Meteorological Outpost North, but treasure hunter? That's not the kind of name you give to something innocent. The official Nazi records, the ones we found after the war, they claim Schatzgräber was established in September 1943 by a team under Lieutenant Commander Wilhelm Didge. Their mission: tour Arctic weather patterns to help U-boat operations in the North Atlantic. Sounds reasonable enough, right? But here's the twist, and this is where the story gets really strange. These weren't just meteorologists. They sent up The team included geologists, mining engineers, and specialists in what Nazi documents called geological reconnaissance. Now, what exactly were they looking for in the middle of frozen nowhere? So the Nazis are up there doing their weather research for months, and then suddenly, in July 1944, something goes horribly wrong. The entire team gets violently ill after eating contaminated polar bear meat. We're talking about serious trichinosis, a parasitic infection that can kill you. But here's what's really wild about this. The Nazis had detailed protocols for Arctic survival. These weren't amateur explorers. These were elite soldiers with extensive training. How do you accidentally poison your entire team with bad meat when survival depends on following protocol? Some historians think it wasn't an accident at all. Maybe they found something they weren't supposed to find. Maybe someone wanted them silenced. Or maybe, just maybe, whatever they were really doing up there went sideways, and the contaminated meat was just a convenient cover story. The base was hastily evacuated, and officially, that was the end of Schatzgräber. The Nazis sealed up everything, left it to the ice, and never spoke of it again. For over 70 years, Alexandra Land kept its secrets. The Soviet Union knew the base existed, but getting there was nearly impossible, even with their resources. The location was so remote, so dangerous, that it just wasn't worth the risk to investigate some old Nazi ruins. But then, climate change started melting Arctic ice, making previously unreachable areas accessible for the first time in decades. And that is when the Russian Arctic National Park decided to finally solve this mystery once and for all. In August 2016, a team of Russian researchers and park rangers made a dangerous journey to Alexandra Land. What they expected to find were maybe some rusty barrels, broken equipment, the usual debris from an abandoned military outpost. What they actually found was something completely different. Now, when these Russian explorers first approached the site, they could see structures still standing after 7 decades in one of the harshest environments on Earth. That alone was remarkable, but it was just the beginning. Inside the main bunker, they discovered over 500 individual artifacts perfectly preserved by the Arctic cold. Nazi uniforms, personal letters, ammunition, scientific instruments, but it was the documents that really caught their attention. These weren't weather reports. They found detailed geological surveys, mineral analysis charts, and something that really raised eyebrows: extensive maps of the Arctic Ocean floor. Now remember, this is 1943. Why would a weather station need submarine topography maps? Dr. Yevgeny Ermolov, one of the lead researchers on the expedition, later said the preservation was so complete that they could read handwritten notes as if they'd been written yesterday. And some of those notes, well, they suggested the Nazis were looking for something very specific under the ice. Here's where this story takes another strange turn. Among the documents, the Russians found references to geological formations that, frankly, shouldn't have been interesting to anyone running a simple weather station. The Nazis had been conducting systematic drilling operations, taking core samples from the permafrost and the seabed. But here's the kicker. They were specifically targeting areas with unusual magnetic readings. We're talking about precise scientific exploration that required expensive equipment and specialized knowledge. One document, marked with Nazi eagle insignia, referenced strategic mineral deposits and geological anomalies consistent with target parameters. Target parameters for what? Nobody builds a weather station to hunt for minerals in 1943, especially not when you're losing a world war. The drilling equipment they left behind wasn't standard meteorological gear either. This was heavy-duty mining equipment, the kind you use when you're looking for something valuable underground. So here we are, nearly 80 years later, and we still don't have clear answers about what the Nazis were really doing on Alexandra Land. The official story about weather monitoring, it doesn't add up when you look at the evidence. The geological surveys suggest they were searching for rare minerals, possibly uranium or other strategic materials. The submarine maps indicate they might have been planning underwater operations. The sophisticated drilling equipment points to mining or excavation activities. But here's what really keeps researchers up at night. Some of the drill sites are still there, and ground-penetrating radar shows extensive tunnel systems beneath the base. Tunnels that the 2016 expedition didn't have the resources or equipment to fully explore. What's down there? What were the Nazis looking for? And most importantly, did they find it before they had to evacuate? The discovery on Alexandra Land has reopened questions about Nazi operations in the Arctic that historians thought were settled decades ago. It turns out there's still so much you would know about what Germany was doing in those final years of the war. The preserved artifacts from Schatzgräber are now housed in Russian museums, but the site itself remains largely unexplored. The tunnels are still there, sealed under decades of ice and snow. The drilling sites are still visible from satellite imagery. And every year, as Arctic ice continues to melt, more of the base becomes accessible. Who knows what else might be buried under there, waiting to be discovered? The Nazis called it treasure hunter for a reason. The question is, what treasure were they hunting? And in this remote, frozen corner of the world, that treasure might still be waiting to be found. So there you have it, the true story of the Nazi base that shouldn't have existed. A weather station that wasn't monitoring weather, a team of meteorologists who were actually mining engineers, and a mission so secret that even today, we're still trying to figure out what it was really about. The next time you look at a map of the Arctic, remember that somewhere out there, on an island that most people can't even pronounce, lie the frozen remains of one of Nazi Germany's most mysterious operations. And the secrets of Schatzgräber might still be buried under the ice, waiting for someone brave enough to go looking. What do you think the Nazis were really searching for up there? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into forgotten history, make sure to subscribe for more stories about the mysteries that time forgot. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.